My version 3 Wolverine was fun to build, and it has been a great go-anywhere bike. Like any build though, I took a great deal of time researching and planning before I turned any wrench. For the drivetrain, I had to put together a Frankenstein setup commonly called a mullet. While the setup is perfect for climbing the highest mountain passes fully loaded and pedaling fast in the flats when you need to, it does require some planning. Compatibility issues between not only different brands, but also mountain and road drivetrains for a single brand doesn't make planning any easier. In this video, I'll guide you through the process of building a mullet drivetrain to get the best setup with exactly the range you'll need. This is going to be a longer video, so let's get started. Every video I put together is shot and uploaded in 1080p or 4K, but YouTube often displays content in lower resolution, which requires you to change the quality. If the video you're watching right now looks like crap, just take a moment to change the quality to the highest resolution your display will allow. I promise you, this video will be more enjoyable if you do so. I cover a lot of adventure on this channel, so while you're down there, go ahead and click on that subscribe button to follow along. Other than being the most ridiculous hairstyle ever cut, what is a mullet drivetrain and why would you want one for bikepacking, gravel, or another drop bar go-anywhere bike? For about the last decade, the bicycle industry has focused on getting rid of the front derailleur with 1x drivetrains. It's a great setup. 1xs are simpler to use, cleaner looking, and saves weight. Problem is they often don't have the range needed for cycling adventures. Another issue is that 1xs and all road 2xs don't have that get-out granny gear most of us mere mortals need for climbing mountain passes with a fully loaded kit. A mullet drivetrain solves this by combining road drifters on drop bar handlebars, business in the front, with mountain derailleurs and cassettes, party in the back. The drivetrain industry, especially for mountain bikes, often touts the gear range of a setup expressed as a percentage. Gear range is simply the difference between the highest and lowest available gears. A good range is around 500%, even better if it's higher. There's a huge demand for wide-range 1x setups, and the 500% range of the 12-speed SRAM Eagle is one of the best options. But it's only designed for mountain bikes. The 1x road offerings, such as SRAM's Apex or Rival, just don't have the needed range. Even as gravel biking becomes more popular and the industry starts to develop gravel-specific drivetrains, like Shimano's GRX lineup, they still don't have the range, and more importantly, the granny gear needed for fully loaded climbing. How does a mullet drivetrain solve this exactly? We'll cover the granny gear issue later in this video, but let's talk a bit more about range first. How do you calculate range? So we are all on the same page, let's introduce a little bit of math here. I promise, it won't be too painful. For a 1x setup, it's pretty easy. Take the number of teeth in the largest cog of the cassette and divide it by the number of teeth on the smallest, and then simply multiply that by 100. SRAM's popular Eagle is a pretty good example here. The largest cog has 50 teeth, and the smallest has 10. So 50 divided by 10 equals 5. Multiply that by 100 and you get 500%. Simple, right? Well, what about a 2x setup? It's a bit more complicated, but not too much. To calculate the range of a 2x setup, divide the large chainring from the small one. Then we get the result by multiplying that by the cassette calculation we use for the 1x setup. As an example, let's take a popular setup, Shimano's GRX. Kate's Specialized Diverge is equipped with the RX 600 4630 crankset with a Shimano 105 1134 cassette. So the math would look like this. 46 divided by 30 times 34 divided by 11. That equals 1.53 times 3.09. And that equals 4.729. We'll go ahead and multiply that by 100, and that gives us a range of 472.9%. That's pretty good, but it doesn't touch the range found on most mountain bike drivetrains. And the road drivetrains with the greatest range, like SRAM's rival, only tops out at about 420%. Range only tells half the story. To give a clearer understanding of gearing, and to find that granny gear us mere mortals need, we need to talk about gear inches. The math is way more complicated for this. To sum up, it's a calculation that is dependent not only on the chainring and cog tooth count, but also the tire size. Let's simplify this by saying that a good adventure bike has an upper end gear inch calculation over 100 and a low end below 20. Lower is better if you're fully loaded and climbing a mountain pass. I rode the Northern Tier route a few years ago. My upper end gear inch was 95 and my low end was around 16. I wasn't able to go as fast downhill or on the flats as I wanted, and that low end gear inch was pretty extreme. But I had more weight than I should have, and while climbing wasn't entirely easy, it was easier than I expected. There's a link below in the description showing how to do the math to calculate gear inches. But I also included a link for an online gear inch calculator I use before I select the mullet drivetrain I want to build. It's an incredibly useful tool and way quicker and easier than doing the math. Whew, okay, we got the math out of the way. Let's take a look at the reason mullet drivetrains can be confusing for so many people and what makes planning very complicated. Compatibility. Don't get me wrong, I love the process of researching, planning, and executing a bike build. But man, it would be so much easier and less expensive if the component industry just provided what we wanted. I get it though. While the popularity of gravel riding has gone up, compared to other types of riding, there is still not a huge demand for wide range drop bar cycling. When I first started wrenching as a teenager, it was easy to build the bikes with the range I wanted to ride. The 7, 8, and 9 speed setups I was building either had 3 chain rings, or you could mix and match road and mountain bike drivetrains easily. Since 10-speed drivetrains came on the market, compatibility between mountain and road bikes became a little bit more limited. And since 11-speed, they've become entirely incompatible. Since 11-speed drivetrains came on the market, mountain and road drivetrains no longer had the same cable pull and shift ratios to determine cog pitch. Wait, what? What the heck did I just say? And it sounds like I'm going to throw more math at you. Well, I am, but once you get through this, you'll be well on your way to building your own mullet drivetrain. Also, after I explain the complicated parts in this video, in the next video I'll simplify it by telling you a few mullet setups that are compatible, including the one that I built here. If you have more questions or want to know more, shoot me a DM on Instagram. Okay, let's break down what all this means. When you click the lever to shift on the drifter, the shifter pulls in or releases a certain amount of cable. Different brands and different drivetrain speeds pull different amounts of cable. There are too many variations to name here, but I'll have a few examples shortly. Derailleur shift ratios, often called actuation, are the side-to-side movements of the front or rear derailleur relative to the amount of cable pulled. Let's take a few common brand examples. Shimano has a shift ratio of 1.7. This means for every millimeter of cable pulled by the shifter, the derailleur will move 1.7 millimeters. I'll have more on my mullet set up in the next video, but I'm using SRAM's GX exact actuation derailleur with a shift ratio of 1.3. This means for every millimeter of cable pulled by the shifter, the derailleur will move 1.3 millimeters. Make sense? If not, rewind, listen to it again, and after a second review, it might make sense. Finally, cog pitch is the distance from the center of one cog on the cassette to the center of the next. Cog pitch varies a great deal between brands, and as more gears are added, cog pitch shrinks to fit more gears in the same width free hub body. This is why 8, 9, 10, and some 11-speed cassettes fit on the same hub. Okay, time for some more math. This one will be easy though. Putting all this together, it really looks like this. Cable pull times derailleur shift ratio equals cog pitch. Looking at this equation, you can really understand that to get different speed cassettes to fit on the same hub size, engineers needed to design a cassette with reduced width between each cog. The shifter also needed to be redesigned with an extra click and therefore have less cable pull. This really saved a lot of money for component brands because they could leave the derailleur design the same from one speed to another while only changing the shifters and cog pitch. There are many different designs of derailleur within the 8, 9, 10, and 11 speed generations, and this example is definitely oversimplified. But I hope it helps you understand why and how road and mountain drivetrains were compatible for so many generations, and that this is why mullet drivetrains work so well for adventure bikes. Road drivetrains with drifters don't have the range or low enough gear inches. Matching the right drifters with the mountain cassette and derailleur is the perfect solution. Once 11 and 12 speed drivetrains came on the market, everything changed. Road and mountain drivetrains were no longer compatible. I love a good big corporation conspiracy theory, and the big brand drivetrain companies find new and creative ways to get you to hand over your hard-earned cash. But the reality is, for 11 and 12 speed systems, cog pitch became too small to work smoothly on the same hub bodies as 8, 9, and 10 speeds. The only solution was to completely redesign 11 and 12 speed hub bodies, cassettes, drifters, and derailleurs. It doesn't make it any less frustrating that 11 speed road 1x and 2x setups don't have the range and low gear inches, and 12 speed setups are not compatible with road drifters. There's one saving grace here. Wireless systems like SRAM's Axis will allow you to program the range and gear inches you'll need. For those on a budget, we'll have to wait until this technology goes down in price. But until then, we have the mullet. In the next video, I'll cover my 2x10 mullet setup that includes SRAM's S700 drifters, SRAM's Force front mech, and SRAM GX rear derailleur. I have a ridiculous range of 614.48%. And my gear inches on the high end are 113.70. On the low end, it's 18.48. If I was willing to go with a skinnier tire or go from 29er to 650B, I could get that low end even lower. Hit subscribe if you want to tune into that adventurous video and countless others coming your way on this channel.